and 21. I'll turn it over to our executive director. Well, I'm sorry. I got a couple other things I'm supposed to do. Hey, give me a moment on this chairperson thing. We do have a quorum, and we need to review and approve the minutes. You should have it in your package, and we'll give you just a few seconds, and if someone would like to make a motion, followed by a second.
I can make the motion to approve the minutes.
Motion by Commissioner Dash, second. Okay, I still see some still looking. Would you like for us to just put it in neutral for a minute or what?
You can approve.
Okay. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the approval of the minutes say aye.
Aye.
Opposals? All right. Now we'll move to the financial update.
Thank you, Chair Tucker. Hold on. I better not hit that twice. Apparently hitting the button twice puts us on self-destruct. So I did just want to let other commissioners know, if you would like to speak into the microphone, you push the little button with the little person, and do your best to only push it once. Thank you. The financials, this body does not vote on approval of the financials month to month. But the current P&L is in your packet. We are on budget, and I want to acknowledge the request from Commissioner Vennick at our last meeting that we have not just a representation of what has been spent, but a fuller view of the whole annual budget. And I am working with Mark Etherly, our Director of Operations and Special Projects, on developing that budget to best accurately reflect where we intend to spend the few funds that we have in our discretion, to our discretion. So that will be coming. I also wanted to raise the issue that we are going to be entering into Metro's budget process shortly, and I know that this body has talked for quite a while about the need for additional resources, and I'm working currently with one of our interns and with our staff on sort of a long-term view of what kind of investments have been made in this commission over the last 15 to 20 years. And to also look at what kind of investments have been made, across departments for some kind of comparison. We're also looking at what kind of investments other cities, comparable cities, are making into their human rights or human relations commissions or their comparable bodies. So I'd really, I've had a good conversation with our chair about putting together a small budget committee of this body to review that information and to work with me on a strategy for approaching this budget season and really to get some budget modifications that many of you have deemed sort of overdue at this point.
If you look at the budget increases of the commission over time as compared to the growth of Nashville over time, you'll see that if this commission, irrespective of who the commissioners are to keep pace with and address these issues that the charter says we are about, then the commission needs to grow. So in my conversation with the executive director, we've come up with this committee that we like to look at and talk with her, and she's made known to us over time some of the shortfalls when we as commissioners dream about what it is we want them to do and to have it ready for the next meeting. And she has to tell us in her long way no that she just doesn't have the resources to do that. So what I would like to do is to get a committee to work with Melanie to come up with what those budget asks are. And just as she said, what is that strategy? We're all appointed commissioners. And as I look across here, we all have some level of political influence that once we come up with that, how do we strategically go about getting it into next year's budget? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was kind of an ask. We're looking for volunteers for this budget committee.
I'll volunteer.
Oh, wow. It's going to be that. Okay, we have Commissioner Vinnick, Commissioner Mann, Tran, Abufazi, and I don't know why I thought you put your hand up.
Real clear, my hand's down.
Okay. I think that those five, was it 4 or 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, we've got Vinnick, Mann. Okay, right. I can't count. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know you want me on that commission, Davey.
So we do have 4. So do we need to make a motion or anything for that? Or okay, I'd like to get a motion that we establish a budget committee to assist the executive director in any budget proposals for the next fiscal year.
I move.
Can I get a second?
A second.
Okay. Yes, you second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. An opposal? All right, it so carries. All right, back to you, man.
What did okay.
See, I got the button. This is the button right here.
All right, with regard to old business, I think the most pressing issue is the tentative public hearing set for October 25th, conceived in large part as a response to a complaint by the NAACP, but also really accounting for a number of concerns that we've heard from constituents. So the planning committee met last month, just following a week after our full commission meeting. We do have this room for October 25th from 4 to, we have the room until 7, but I think the hearing will be from 4 to 6. And after having conversations with that planning committee and further conversations I've had with the chair, and taking into consideration all of the really great recommendations and concerns that you all brought in our last meeting, I think that we have a pretty solid recommendation for moving forward on the 25th. And Chair Tucker, I'd appreciate, I think that you were pretty articulate about what the goal was. So I would ask you to share that.
Okay, articulate, I like that. When we first started talking about this, I used the phrase reimagining public safety. From the civic perspective, anytime you say public safety, it's always police, fire, and emergency management. But we know, and others know, that is too narrow. And so that's what I like to call it, reimagining public safety. But from the policing projects reimagining public safety. The policing project who did the last police report here, this is what they say that I think kind of sums it up. Public safety means ensuring communities, especially historically marginalized communities, have the resources to address critical social problems, such as access to housing, food security, transportation, and health care in an effective and humane way. It means empowering those communities to participate in shaping what public safety looks like. And it means minimizing, whenever possible, the harms that often accompany policing, such as the use of force and arrest. So that to me is kind of the gist of what it is that we were trying to get our hands around while we were talking about just having this hearing, because we know all too well that the way things are situated now, we have criminalized poverty. And so what ends up happening is the individual citizens do not get what they need. And so if we can help the city understand that public safety is bigger than police and fire, that housing, homelessness, mental health, all these issues have something to do when we talk about public safety. So it is in that vein that we'd like to have a hearing from those organizations and individuals that are part and parcel of what it means to create a safe environment, which would be inclusive of the police and possibly even the district attorney's office, but also those organizations that are vying for the limited public resources. That we just came through the last budget process, and the mental health issue that to me it was a compromise. It's still placed with the police department. And if you remember the unfortunate incident down in Brentwood where the young man was in the woods, well, the mental health providers had been there the entire time, but they could not say anything until the police gave them the ability to. A random shot goes off in the dark and this guy's killed. And they still don't know who actually fired the shot. So if we can bring more awareness to the need to expand what we mean when we say public safety, when you start allocating resources, we ought to be able to show that there is a correlation between dealing with the mental health issue that will free up the police department from dealing with the mental health issue, dealing with the homeless issue that would free up the police department from having to deal with the homeless issue, deal with these issues of wages. I had a conversation with the chamber, and they talk about these thousands of jobs that are available, but no one even studied to see how many of those jobs are 40-hour jobs, which would have benefits. And so, again, what makes for public safety? Is that enough, Mel? Because I can go on and on. Comments from the commission?
Reverend Tuck, yeah,
Yes.
I just wanted to say I really appreciate your remarks. Thank you for the definition of public safety and for looking broadly at it. And I don't want it to get lost that for many people, the presenting public safety issue is the community's relationship with the police and the attacks on communities of color. So I want us to keep that in balance where we do talk broadly about it, and I think the people who have brought some of the complaints are looking specifically for us to address the safety issue with law enforcement. So it's how do we keep, I just want to make sure that we keep those things. Because in one way, the way you presented it just now, it can invite us to look broadly and invite us to look at root causes, which is what we want to do. Presented another way, it can be perceived that we're not dealing with the presenting issue. So I hope that the way you presented it to us will replicate itself, because you just did a masterful job.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner. But to reassure you, yes, I get the nuance of what you're saying. And by way of just to say that, I routinely attend the COB meetings. Our ED and the director of the COB have a very close conversation. I mean, a very close relationship, that they're often in conversation so that we don't cross over onto their lines, but also that we use whatever we have to help bolster their impact.
Exactly.
In fact, at the last meeting, it's the commissioners on the COB, probably 75% of them voiced that the attention that the police department is paying to them is much like it was under the former chief. And the issue there, again, for me, has been the city voted overwhelmingly for community oversight. But what we have right now is cooperation. And so something else has to happen in that regard. And so we're looking at even ways in which we can help the COB by the mandates that we have. Because people did not vote for cooperation. They voted for oversight. And by the COB's own frustration and admission, at best what they have is poor cooperation.
Right, not even cooperation in my mind.
Yes, yes. Commissioner Venning.
So do we have a sense of who is going to be invited to speak? Because I think that somewhat addresses the concern you had, because obviously, you know, one can articulate a vision, as our chair has done so, but, you know, the extent to which it falls or the responses, the information that is provided is really going to be driven by who is asked to come.
Yes, I have some suggestions, and I would like to, you know, through our own going back and forth, come up with a much fuller list so that we can adequately deal with this. We can invite the COB to even come, the NAACP. We were looking at the academy to come in a fashion of a white paper type situation. I suggested ABC due to some preferences I might have, but one of the best activists that is an academic is Sekou Franklin, who has actually done some masterful work in that area. So those are just some. Also, the police department, the district attorney's office, because so much of what you're saying is what we really want to try to capture is, so what other folk do we need at that table to actually round this out?
And just one other thing, I mean, I think this was apparent at our eviction hearing, that, you know, all those people would be offering just valuable insight and information, but we have limited time, and, you know, it was a challenge to sort of fall within the time parameters of the eviction hearing. So I just offer that as an observation.
And also the mayor's office, Commissioner Abafazi.
Thank you. I have a question. So I think the commissioner brings up a good point about the original claims and the original complaint that was put in. And do we have an understanding, was that complaint put in it with the COB as well? And are they addressed? It's not. So in terms of this time issue and what outcome we want, or what does success look like? And I know it can look a million different things, but do we want to name that complaint, name those recruiting, hiring issues? Have we decided no on that? I remember the first time we talked about this.
Okay, let me kind of cut all that open.
Okay.
I didn't know that the chair came with spending so much time with Mel Fowler Green and staff, but
Oh, wow.
okay.
I'm sorry.
We've done a couple things.
Okay.
One, we actually got a legal opinion as it relates to the district attorney that as it relates to,
formal legal.
yeah, not a formal, but there's this automatic question. He's a state actor. We're a local situation. Well, we've even talked about the ambiguity of the claim from the NAACP.
Okay.
So another thing that's in our charter of what we do is to facilitate between two parties. So we're now in the process of trying to put the NAACP together in a facilitated process with the district attorney's office. That has not yet been finalized. That would allow them to sit and to address their concerns with them. So that's a piece of an answer. You said something else too.
No, I mean, yeah, so my issue was that if that's what we're trying to get at and that's what we want to show and work on, then we need to narrow the conversation to that so that 3 hours isn't gone and that
No.
not, and y'all are handling it in a different way. I think that's fine.
I mean, what happened I think organically during our conversation was this was a much larger conversation than the letter sent by the NAACP. But as a commission, we are going to answer and ultimately formally, in some respect, their complaint to us.
So as members on the discussion panel, they will be aware of us addressing it in other ways and other things so that it's not like, well, where's our, response to our complaint?
Yeah, most definitely. When inviting them would be around the whole.
The larger.
Yeah, the whole thematic thrust of
Great.
what this is about.
Okay, great.
And I do think that it's incumbent upon us to recognize that the issues that were raised by the NAACP, particularly hiring practices and de-escalation, are two issues that the COB has worked very hard on in making recommendations and have had a lot of back and forth with the police department on those recommendations. So I think that they have, whether or not we deem those to be adequately addressed might be another question. But I do think that it's important that we ensure that the NAACP knows what the COB is advocating for and how they can advocate further in their community role.
And Mel, I think what would also be helpful if we could get from the COB the documents of where they are now. Their last board meeting was over the hiring and the de-escalation training. They actually did a multi-page questionnaire or whatever to the police department about changes. They answered them in a green, red, and yellow format. So it was overwhelmingly green, which was surprising, but in certain areas they had yellow and red. And so they've sought even answers to some of those. So I think that would be helpful to us, that if we could get that information and just disseminate it to everybody, because it's the very same issues that we were talking about.
So I think if we can, however you deem appropriate, address that on the outset and say, these are the things that we're working on in others, if you think that's necessary, in other channels and in other ways, or at least just tell the NAACP so that the conversation doesn't get derailed into these minutia things. Yeah, and
we've been in conversation with the NAACP
and
their legal redress committee. And so they're aware of, we're working this and we're going to address them. So they're well aware of.
And they're cool with the themes and everything for ours. Okay,
yes.
Then I think we're good. Sorry.
So what I'll do is send out a request for a time for a planning hearing committee. Bring the gang back together again and put together the final invitation list, recognizing that I think we need to have fewer invitees than we had for the last hearing, because the time was pretty tight last time. So I think there were 9 people that you all heard from. So I think keeping that, to 7. 6 or 7. Yeah, I think would be best.
And I guess one other thing is that there is no reason that I can think of why, if things are not fully explained or resolved or whatever on October 25th, we cannot revisit them at a later time.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. And again, I just want to make sure that the commission knows that on behalf of the commission, the NAACP is well aware of where we're heading, how we're trying to resolve this, and how we're trying to come along and help them, and also explaining to them clearly what our limitations are as set out by what our stuff is. So they're fine.
And I think that this conversation about reimagining public safety, I think is a really good, it feeds really well into the final hearing about budget equity. Right? I think that what you will learn on the 25th will definitely inform a conversation about where this city can make its best investments for public safety, particularly for communities who have not enjoyed public safety at the hands of police.
Any other discussion, comments? All right.
Executive, you want to set up the fact that we had the executive board meeting?
Oh, okay, thank you. We had the executive board meeting prior to this meeting to review the procurement standards board. Now, I think I've jumped ahead
Oh,
here.
you did. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That was my fault.
Okay,
Speaking of hearings, we have,
okay.
yes. Sorry, Chair, I led you down the wrong path.
And I followed so easily.
Yeah, I know, right? Speaking of public hearings, we do have a draft of the recommendations and summary report of the public information hearing on evictions held on September 8th. I think you all should have received a copy of that by email. There's also a copy in the packet. I want to thank the commissioners who have already shared some suggested edits. But I wanted you all to have an opportunity to talk a little bit about what the report looks like. Is there something that you think should be included that isn't included? This will be your report. So I just want to make sure that it reflects what you all heard in that hearing and what you want to reflect back out to the community.
And I'm going to say this, and then I'll recognize you, Commissioner Dash. I would suggest that if you just look at it, it's basically summation of the presenters, but on the back is the Human Relations Commission recommendations that I think would be best for us to consider in light of it, that we either affirm or not these recommendations, and how can we make them more specific in certain areas with certain asks before we publish it. That's just one thought. Commissioner Dash.
Yeah, I think the only thing, and it might be in here, this is a lot of text to take in. So if it's in here, staff, feel free to just point it out to me and let me know. But I think the only other recommendation that I would add is I think we, after talking to Legal Aid Society and some others, they had mentioned how there was a lack of resources for undocumented community members. And so in the recommendations, if it's not there already, which again it might be, making sure that there is some sort of recommendation we can make for Metro to create some sort of pathway for undocumented communities to also take advantage of some of these services if possible.
Recommendation 5.
Number 5.
All right, thanks everyone. Sorry to waste your time. Glad it's there.
So
Who knew reading would be so important in these moments?
I guess the one comment that I had is that the case-link system that was referred to a number of times is really intended to be a docket management system for the use of the clerk's office and lawyers. It's not really intended to be a data collection, so I think that we may want to be a little bit more specific about what kind of information or what kind of modifications would be advisable for the case link system that has more general application other than just for evictions. And I think there was some reference made about that at the hearing. So that I guess I don't want, because somebody can just look at that and say, well, that's not what the purpose of the case link system is. It's not there to help you analyze evictions. It's there. So.
Well, I think they tried to grab that in number 3, and so maybe I think we can be a little bit more definitive in what it is we're asking and what that system showed that was lacking to get around what I think it is that you're saying, Commissioner Vinnick, that we can go back to and revisit number 3 and maybe even make some suggestions towards some particular software, but also kind of outline what the problems were in this particular usage.
Yeah, and then I think the other thing that was really specifically referenced, I think both by Sarah Fiegel and Legal Aid Society, was the scheduling of hearings. So there was more advanced notice about hearings for people who had court dates upcoming. Right now, I think the dockets come out on Friday for hearings the following Monday, and I think Jackie Sims and Legal Aid Society and Kerry Dietz made reference to the fact how that really puts people facing evictions or defendants generally at a severe disadvantage in terms of getting ready for court hearings.
Well, right after our hearing, all the general sessions evictions have been forwarded to Judge Bell's court. So now there's all just one place where all of those are going now. So that may be something we can check in with her about the efficiency of what you're talking. But it was maybe 3 or 4 days or a week after that hearing that whoever the presiding general sessions judge is, and I think at the request of Judge Bell, that they moved all of them to her court.
I just want to clarify something. So for the Hope Dollars, funds are available for undocumented, but legal representation is not available through Legal Aid Society. Is that?
Hope funds are available for undocumented?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That is loosely my understanding too, Commissioner Mayor.
I just wanted to add that the city does have already technology for the kinds of data tracking that I think at least Red Door Collective would like to see with permits, construction permits, and codes violations. We have a map that shows the density of where permits are being issued, and you can also download that information. I believe that kind of technology is called GIS. So perhaps we could ask the other departments of the city to give us, or perhaps we could put in our recommendations to consult with those departments to see if that technology can easily be implemented for evictions as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Diaz. You were getting ready.
Well, yeah, and I was just going to reiterate that if my recollection is correct from the folks at Red Door, and it might have been Sarah Fiegel who talked about it as well, that there are other cities that are doing sort of deep analysis on their eviction crises through the equivalent of the case tracking system that they have. right? So there's not some separate thing at planning or some other department, right? That they have the technology as part of their case management systems. And so I would like to have my office follow up with the folks at Red Door on what that national project was that they tried to tap into and then came to discover that that national project couldn't assist us because it required going through CaseLink, and they just couldn't pull the data that they could pull from other cities.
I think it was the Princeton Center for Eviction Studies, that the data could not go across interfaces and systems. So, yeah, we could contact them, and I'm sure they'll let us know.
Okay, and yeah, we'll be sure to clarify in the recommendations, or at least somewhere in here, right, that, to your point, Commissioner Vennick, yes, CaseLink is intended for, the court and lawyers, but modern technology has allowed better analysis for policymaking through that technology in other cities. So it's not, it's not a difficult ask. We may be able to give some good examples.
Has anybody asked if the data is actually available? It's just not easily available through like a public portal? Like, can the clerk's office export it for you or not?
Well, and that was part of the problem that came up during the discussion, was that some small information like phone numbers, regular contact stuff was not available, but also the idea of getting the clerk to give it to you in some other format proved to be rather challenging also.
And I just want to be real clear. It has nothing to do with the clerk not wanting to give the information. In fact, our office was in communication with the clerk's office, 3 years ago, asking if we could get eviction information. Well, before this crisis. It was just because we were working on affordable housing issues. It was something that the commission was interested in. The clerk's office was incredibly helpful and wanted to provide the information we were asking. But the way CaseLink works and the software, the way that it's managed, there really is no way to take all that information and, let's say, just download it into an Excel spreadsheet.
Let me recognize Commissioner Tran, who has waited patiently.
Also, I just wanted, in light of that comment, so for example, like number 7, sounds like there's no data. Like if you said to Metro, collect data, they already have the data. It's just not legible and translatable. So in other words, the recommendation should strongly emphasize that in order for data analysis to happen, that data that we already have should be on a platform that speaks to other researchers and platforms, is one. The other comment that I have about this overall suggestion is one, I emailed this to you earlier, but now that I'm here, is to maybe think about the problems that we're giving solutions to. Because from what I can, reading this report, what I can see is that there are 3 types of solutions to the problems. One is preventative measures so increase funds to 120% AMI. The other is to kind of crisis control respondents to the eviction problems and process, and the other is technology. So if we broke kind of broke those down that way, it's easier to read, it's more legible, and then to frame it with these are the particular problems that we hear about, the lag time and dispersion of funds and so forth. It might be easier to follow as a document.
All right, give those 3 again, please.
Preventative measures for evictions,
okay.
right? So housing first. So if people lose housing, then all these other issues begin to follow. That should be, I think, the overall theme of what we're trying to put forth. And then the second aspect, those are preventative measures. The second aspect is the actual process of eviction, that it's not efficient, it's delayed, we can't get in touch with people. Those are problems within the process itself. And then finally, just technology. the lack of information and the lack of transparency through
Right.
information.
Thank you. Any
Mr.
other-
Chair, I had thank you to my colleague, Dr. Tran, because I had similar concerns about how we parse out the information. And on that note, I would like to recommend that maybe we move our findings and our recommendations to the front of the report, because otherwise it feels to me like we're just regurgitating what was told to us. And while I think it's important for us to document what was told to us, I think in our report, people are looking to us for our recommendations based on, and our findings. So I would ditto everything Dr. Tran said, and I'll just move that forward. I think the record, as I said, is important. I think for our purposes, it's more important to say that these are the recommendations. And then second to that, you have to forgive me, I'm 50 years out of journalism school, but I can't stop myself. I think, too, it would help if our recommendations were put in the form of action verbs, so that we say we are recommending that this particular department do this or change this, or that, you know, to make it so it's more parallel, so that we are more specifically who, because for me it was confusing. We asked for Metro government, for example, to do stuff. Well, Metro government is big, so who do we want to do that in Metro government? And I'm speaking, you know, I don't know, so who is it? So those would be my suggestions too. I thought the report was excellent. I thought our recommendations are. I think the organization piece would be very helpful.
Thank you.
Is there any follow-up from any of this, like any next steps?
Give me an example of what you,
Following up with like the offices that we say should do something, or figuring out if any, you know, are we sending this to those offices? Are we expecting a
Yes.
response from them?
well, I'm expecting a response, and I think once we publish the report, then it creates the time to talk about it at that point. Yeah, I would hope that we would try to see some of this through.
I do want to say something. To follow
Commissioner, yes,
up
Brian.
on that issue of being more specific and having action verbs, talking on this case link thing, and it says, make the information more accessible. I think we ought to say exactly what we want. If we want, you know, name, address, phone number, landlord name, whatever, like, we ought to say what fields we want populated and accessible, not just say the information.
Yeah, and
my opinion.
accessible to who, for what purpose? You know, do we need it in different languages? Do we need more helpers? Because I think that was one of the things that I saw, that people are not getting access to the information. Even if they have the technology, it can be a little, not a little, it was prohibitive to me. Because I'm looking at some of that stuff they were asked to provide, and I couldn't provide it myself. You know, I have a master's degree. I don't know how people could follow that application, because it asked for so much information, and it felt intrusive in many ways and unnecessary. I never did get a satisfactory answer to how you verify the, you know, of what kind of identification a 3-year-old has in a household. How do you verify that a 3-year-old is who he says or she says he is? So those kinds of things.
Well, I cannot definitely speak on behalf of MAC, but I think the pressure that came to bear from their initial slowness in getting out the funds took care of a lot of that in various ways. Because they were leaving files open for those very same reasons, you know.
I don't have any problem with pressure myself, so, okay.
Well, and I would say, notwithstanding that, I think those problems continue. I don't think those problems are over.
No, yeah, you're correct.
And I think the impression that was being left was, that was in the past, it's not now, that's not the case.
No, and I would agree with you, to where others are still trying to help them streamline the process. That some of it, to me, I don't know, I'm not that smart, is it doesn't have to be that way. They're making so much of it so difficult. If you know I live here and I can prove that, and my landlord says I'm late, then if you got the money, cut a check. And so I think a lot of that they're giving, that they're blaming the Treasury on, I believe it's a local interpretation of those rules in the most oppressive fashion.
Well, and I would also add that having built a mechanism for taking online applications for whatever funds MAC has, that they're going to continue to use that system, right? We just made a big investment as a city, right, through those administrative funds and the Treasury funds to build that system. And to the extent that that application process is not working for the very people who need that support, I think this is addressing a larger problem, not just the HOPE funds, but going forward.
I do want to just do a time check. I just know that I think if I'm looking at the agenda correctly, we have a guest presentation and we still have old business to cover. So I just wanted to do that time check real quick.
Thank you. Are there any other questions as it relates to this? But if not, if you would please email whatever suggestions. And again, I want to say that I'm encouraged and very well pleased by this first review of the information that we took. And so I'm sure that as we put our own specificity to what these recommendations are, I can't wait to see what this thing's going to be. So please, anything, whatever, email to the commission so that we can get this in here.
Yeah, so you would email any other suggestions to me, and I am sharing them with Liz. And I want to acknowledge, Liz, thank you very much for putting together this draft for us. Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda would be, well, it's not on here, but I'm going to do it anyway. We welcome our former chair, and Dr. Richmond, who just eased into the side. Then we're going to move on to the Procurement Standards Board nomination process.
And in the interest of time, I'm going to make this quick. The executive board met today just before this full commission meeting to discuss the process by which this body will make a nomination to the Procurement Standards Board. If you recall, there was legislation that was adopted from Metro Council addressing a number of procurement issues. The state legislature preempted almost the entire bill, but one piece that did survive the preemption was that the Metro Human Relations Commission will now nominate a member for the Procurement Standards Board. And the person you all nominate will then go for confirmation through Metro Council. So the first question then is the process by which the nomination is even going to be made. So you all gave the executive board the charge to come up with a proposal for that process and bring that back to you all for a vote and for adoption. So the process that is recommended is, first of all, to do this by an open call for self-nomination. We will have a quote-unquote job description with criteria, some criteria that are not within our discretion. Things like you have to be a registered voter in Davidson County. You can't serve on any other board or commission. But the executive board would also like to add that having some experience or knowledge about labor rights and about government contracts would be desirable, and something that expresses an alignment with the mission of this commission, right? Because it's you all who are going to be making that nomination. So the application, we could set that up online. We will then also ask for a resume. We'll put a time limit on the open call. We're going to ask that if you all have people that you think would serve well on the Procurement Standards Board, that you encourage them to self-nominate and apply through our online portal. One commissioner and the executive director will do the initial review to see who from the nominations do meet the basic criteria. One of our executive board members, Commissioner Dash, volunteered to serve in that role currently. And then a committee of 3 commissioners will do interviews, and that committee will then bring forward a recommendation to the commission for adoption for the nomination. Does that make sense? So that was the recommendation of the executive board.
Any discussion, questions?
I have a question.
Yes,
If someone
sir.
self-nominates and they submit, I guess they submit a resume and some statement of why they want the position,
Yep.
is that all like a public record then that anybody can see?
Yes.
Any other questions?
May I ask why the required experience in labor rights and government contracts, and what the spirit was behind that, and how broadly we're going to interpret this? I really would like, unfortunately, the majority of construction workers here in Nashville are undocumented, so they are systematically excluded from serving in that board. But are we going to consider construction workers for this, even if they don't have experience with government contracts?
Well, Commissioner Diaz, that was legitimately a significant portion of our conversation, because we were all remember how this issue came up, that the singular most affected class were Latinx individuals. And so we wanted to be sensitive to that. We still want to be sensitive to that. And that hopefully we can come up with a nomination through this open process, that someone will be very, very mindful of that.
And I'll just say that says desirable, not necessary, not required, nothing, just desirable. It's not anything that would negate anyone from serving.
And if I could just ask for clarification of our legal person, there is a standard qualifying criteria to serve on a board or commission?
Procurement Standards Board?
Well, just boards or commissions. Is there some in general?
Yes, there are, and of course I would have to send those criteria, but they'll probably have them at their fingertips. They are specified in the Metropolitan Code.
Okay.
And until that's changed or altered, that would be the applicable standard that must be used.
All right, thank you. Do we need to get a motion in a second on this? If there's no more discussion, we'd like to get a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve, whatever it is, the nomination process for the Procurement Standards Board.
I second.
It's been properly moved in second, and there's no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those in opposal. All right, thank you. And now we're going to move into the new business, and we have a guest presentation on web-based expungement app. I'm going to turn that over to Mel for the intro.
Yes, thank you. I think we are definitely honored to have with us again the Executive Director of the Legal Aid Society, Darkenya Waller. We're starting to be good friends. Well, I really appreciate you coming to present today. This body has had over the course of my 6.5 years as the executive director, we've had lots of conversations about expungement, and so we are very excited to hear that you all have developed a web-based expungement app, and we would invited you to come tell us a little more about that app, get these folks excited about it, and to spread the word. And so if we could 10, 15 minutes, and if you don't mind, answer any questions that they might have. Absolutely.
Excuse me just 1 minute. Is your mic on?
Good question. Well, you have to tell me how that works.
Okay. Ms. Liz will.
There you go. All right.
All
Is
right.
that better?
Yes, ma'am.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Again, like I said, my name is Darkenia Waller, Executive Director of the Legal Aid Society of Middle Tennessee and the Cumberlands. And of course, we are Tennessee's largest nonprofit law firm with 8 offices across Middle Tennessee. We offer free civil legal services to low-income and vulnerable people. Residents of Davidson County can access our services in our Nashville office, which is located at 1321 Murfreesboro Pike. But those outside of Davidson County can access our services or walk into any of our other 7 locations, which are in Clarksville, Gallatin, Murfreesboro, Columbia, Cookeville, Tullahoma, and Oak Ridge, Tennessee. The size and the breadth of our organization and the offerings also allow us to leverage expertise, resources, and experience from across our 48-county service area to bring quality legal representation to a growing poverty population. I've stated this before, and I'll reiterate it here because it bears repeating. There is no legal right to an attorney for civil matters. Nashville does not operate a civil legal services division that represents people, the general public. There is no public defender's office for civil cases. That's what we do. Generally, where you hear the Miranda rights state that you will be appointed an attorney if you cannot afford one, well, it's likely accompanying some individual who's being placed in handcuffs and their head being ducked into the back of a police car. For that, you are entitled by law to an attorney. On the other hand, if you are a senior citizen whose appointed guardian is stealing your Social Security check, you are not entitled to an attorney. If you are a domestic violence victim who spent their entire life, married life, as a stay-at-home mom, and now for safety reasons, you have to escape that relationship, you and your children are not entitled to an attorney for that. If you are an individual who was arrested and given criminal charges that were later dismissed, you're not entitled to an attorney to assist you in removing that mark from your record so that you, an innocent person, can get public housing or a job. This is where Legal Aid Society comes in. Through private donations and grants, Legal Aid Society helps to make the legal system more fair, less daunting for those who are unable to afford an attorney. Our 45 staff attorneys and our network of more than 400 pro bono attorneys handle a variety of civil legal issues, including bankruptcy, consumer protection, family law, health and benefits law, tax disputes, and reentry work for those persons who were formerly incarcerated. One such person was our client, Keisha, and Keisha's a real person. It's not her real name, though. Keisha was a young single mother who came to us with a criminal record in Davidson County. She wanted to clear up her record so she could go back to school.
After looking at her record, we realized that we were able to expunge everything from her record if we could get her costs waived. We filed a petition on her behalf through the indigency dockets of the courts and were able to get $300 in criminal costs waived that she never would have been able to pay anyway. Thereafter, we filed 5 expungement orders to clear her record, and Keisha was able to enroll at Columbia State. Reentry happens when someone gets out of jail or prison and re-enters, quote unquote, re-enters society. It is the term used to describe the process and interventions that enable incarcerated individuals to return home and stay there. Reentry can include challenges, however. A criminal record can create a barrier to employment, housing, public benefits, and other basic necessities. The reentry program at Legal Aid Society of Middle Tennessee and the Cumberlands helps people overcome these barriers and connect with resources. They can help make the reentry process a little easier. In particular, we assist with employment by petitioning the court for a certificate of employability, which was created by the legislature, to mitigate the liability an employer might be exposed by hiring a formerly incarcerated person. This can increase the chances of being approved for a professional occupational license, which also is in jeopardy with criminal background. We help voting rights restoration, by helping individuals restore their right to vote after having been convicted of a felony offense. We offer full civil rights restoration. That includes assisting eligible individuals with restoring all rights revoked after having been convicted of a felony offense, such as holding public office or sitting on a jury. Criminal costs, court costs, fines, fees, assisting with the filing of affidavits of indigency and motions to waive unpaid criminal court costs, fines, and fees, or helping to set up affordable payment plans like we did for Keisha. Driver's license reinstatement, reviewing driver's license reinstatement requirements and assisting with the removal of holes due to unpaid traffic tickets, unpaid criminal court costs, and car accidents, or helping to negotiate those and set up payment plans. Registry removal, assisting eligible individuals, and the key is eligible, individuals with removal from either the sex offender registry or vulnerable adult abuse registry, and expungements, including erasing or removing charges and convictions from your criminal record. This includes dismissed charges, no contest charges, diversion program charges, and certain eligible guilty convictions. And again, the key word is eligible. Having a criminal record can severely limit one's access to employment, education, housing, civic engagement, and public assistance. 1 in 3 Americans has a criminal record. Nearly 9 in 10 employers, 4 in 5 landlords, and 3 in 5 colleges use background checks to screen for applicants' criminal records. And one study found that more than 45,000 federal and state statutes and regulations impose disqualification or disadvantages on individuals with a conviction. Even when there isn't a conviction, an arrest record decreases a person's employment prospects more than any other common employment-related stigmas. Moreover, the collateral damage of having a criminal record reaches across generations. 1 in 2 parents of American household has at least one parent with a criminal record. The socioeconomic barriers associated with a parent's criminal record can harm a child's long-term well-being and outcomes. These impacts are disproportionately felt by families and communities of color. People of color are arrested and convicted at disproportionately high rates. Criminal records can also be used to target non-citizens for deportation, severing familial ties within migrant communities. Public safety must be approached from a holistic perspective. Community safety and justice is rooted in the right of every person to have their dignity, humanity, and freedom respected and protected, and our belief that the true safety requires access to basic needs, including high-quality education, affordable housing, economic security, accessible transportation, and healthy food. LAS's, and when I say that, Legal Aid Society's reentry program strives to bridge those gaps and bring safety and security for those that were formerly incarcerated, which ultimately contributes to a stronger economy. One of the ways LAS is assisting with reentry is with the creation of an expungement app. In partnership with the Georgetown University Law Center, the reentry program at Legal Aid Society and a group of Georgetown law students worked during the spring of 2020 to develop a Tennessee expungement eligibility assessment, a web-based app designed to increase access to expungement eligibility information. If you can see on our website there, if you go to, and I don't know if you can access that from where you are, Barbara. If you go to Find Help on las.org, and you can go directly to our reentry screening tool. And from there on our website, you can access this tool at the bottom of the screen. The app will take an individual through 4 different assessments for 4 different types of expungements available in Tennessee. At the end of each separate assessment, an interim report is generated telling the person their eligibility for that specific type of expungement. At the end of the entire assessment, a final report is generated that contains the information related to each type of expungement. So if they have 1 felony, 2 misdemeanors, whatever it is, you plug that in, and it will let you know whether those particular offenses are eligible for expungement. A copy of the report will go to a designated person in one of our 8 offices based on what county they put down for their criminal record, and of course also to that person individually for their records. But the legal aid staff member will also be alerted if the person taking the assessment checked yes to the question about whether they want someone from LAS to reach out to them about their expungement eligibility, and we can assist them from there. Information forwarded to us through the app will be kept confidential, so persons who might otherwise be concerned about sharing their criminal background information can feel secure in using the app. Additionally, no confidential information is requested in the app, only name, county of residence, and an email address so that we can send the report. This way, those without legal status or with active warrants or other concerns should not shy away from using the app. While we are pleased with the final product the app provides, we know that it is limited, and it will need to be translated into multiple languages. LAS's website can be translated into the 5 most popular languages in the state, including Arabic, Kurdish, Somali, Spanish, and Urdu. But funding for us could translate the web-based expungement app, and assistance with promoting the app will allow us to reach even more people. And so that is something that would be of assistance to us, would be to be able to translate that app like we do our website. Each of the nonprofits and most of the governmental entities within the city that work with formerly incarcerated persons have each reached out to LAS at some point about how our attorneys can assist their clients with the services we offer, especially expungements and fee waivers. LAS employs 2 full-time equivalents to address reentry work across 48 counties, when in truth, those same 2 full-time equivalents could be used just in Davidson County alone. To be of assistance to Dismiss House, Project Return, Next Door, Urban Housing Solutions, MDHA, the Davidson County Sheriff's Department, and more, it would be great if we had the help of an attorney and a support staff to do that work. LAS is and has for the past 53 years been a resource to the Nashville community. We believe that a criminal record should not be a life sentence to poverty. When statistics show that 70% of formerly incarcerated Tennesseans will commit another crime, it is incumbent upon all of us to ensure our own public safety by ensuring that those persons have access to housing, employment, transportation, and the support they need. Legal Services is an indispensable partner in this fight. Your assistance would be greatly appreciated to help us continue to do that work. That's all I have, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And again, feel free at any point, if you do fill it out, you might get a call from us if you click the button that says, but I mean, just to walk it through, and if you put test in there, they'll know it's a test just for your own purposes. But we certainly encourage you to use it, to share it with your constituents. They can go to our website at las.org, find help, and go to that screening tool to be able to do it. You can also put it on any of your websites and link it back to our LAS page. Thank you.
No, thank you. Great presentation, and you know, it's I know for me, you just showed me one of my own blind spots that we don't often consider is the civil portion of the law, that just listening to you can be as or even more insidious than even the criminal part, because once you get out, everybody says everything's fine, but you can't do this, you can't do that. So I appreciate that. And I guess I'll just start and ask a question. What specifically can we do to help you?
I don't always want to sound like a broken record, but resources for staffing is always going to be our first need, particularly as it relates to reentry work, at least one attorney and a support staff person. We offer a niche service. Lawyers are lawyers, and you really can't go anywhere else to get lawyers. If you need a lawyer, you have to go to a lawyer. You can't go anywhere else to get that. And so the need is always to have available assistance. We will always leverage the private bar. We have to. There's no way we could do this work without the private bar. But there also has to be someone kind of directing the train. Someone has to train those lawyers to do the work. Someone has to ensure the cases and so forth, and to be physically present. Additionally, our attorneys are always looking for systemic issues, something that makes it a little more difficult to do when you're a volunteer. This is not what you do every day. When you have an attorney who's in the courtroom, who's in the trenches, who sees what's happening, they can see the trends or things that aren't working quite right, where there needs to be an adjustment in the system. And so that would always be our first request, is to have staffing, because we can't substitute that. Secondly, publicizing the app. We certainly want people to know that this resource is available. It's something that they can do fairly quickly and easily. We work very hard to put all of our materials on a 5th grade reading level, so most Tennesseans will be able to read it. Although lawyers like to use big words, we try really hard not to do that when we're doing outward-facing documents for the community. We make sure that it's at a level that they can read. And then just to support the work of reentry. I will tell you that for legal aid also, it was a blind spot for us. There is an entire population of people who aren't going anywhere. 97% of people who are incarcerated get released. They're coming home. So we can either do something about it or not. And the not will, in fact, impact our public safety.
Okay, my last little follow-up, and then I'm going to open it up, is if we can maybe go back on our report. I mean, as we preparing our report, be considerate of what was just presented to us, since Ms. Walker was here during the public hearing, specifically relating to the evictions, that we look at how to possibly include some of this in there. Your eyes are up in the air. We'll talk about that later, okay? But don't call me tonight, all right?
I will. I think I'm following you, but I will follow up with you on a specific recommendation.
Okay. And also maybe even invite Ms. Walker again for the reimagining public safety, because that's what we want to try to do, is expand Nashville's understanding of what public safety really looks like. Yeah, so I'll open it up now to commissioners. I saw your hand.
Ms. Waller, thank you so much for being here again today. And Really
see you,
appreciate the program, the app you put together. Just in terms of the process, is the expungement process entirely a paper process, or is there a hearing process or some other advocacy venue other than preparing the documentation in a correct and complete manner?
It depends, but Howard Gentry's office has done a tremendous job in trying to make this process very easy for Davidson County residents. And I say that in contrast to a lot of other parts of the state that are nowhere near where Davidson County is. And to some extent, yes, there's not a need for a process where an attorney appears. More often than not, it's navigating if someone should apply, particularly if, they may have some other issues that might complicate it. And then if they do, to ensure that it goes through the process completely. But the orders are, at this point in Davidson County, can be submitted by the clerk's office once the preliminary work is done. But that is specifically for expungements. For some of the other things I mentioned, they are court-driven.
So just to push it forward, so the application would be submitted through the clerk's office, and then that would then, assuming it's complete, would then go to a judge, general sessions, or a criminal court judge?
Typically general sessions, but yes.
And then the judge would then act upon the application. If the judge denies the application, what remedy is there after that?
Appeal is always an option.
Okay.
But as you know, that is pretty daunting for most people to pursue the appeal process. Okay. And that's when it comes back to us. And we have done that, where we felt that that we were correct in our assessment of a particular case. We'll take it to an appeal, and oftentimes that's the only way it gets done, because sometimes the rubber stamp on no comes down a little bit more quickly than it should.
Okay, great, thank you.
Commissioner Aberfazzi.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that presentation. I think I agree completely with Commissioner Tucker. If you are able to join the policing discussion, I think your discussion on entry, re-entry, or however people misuse that term, and the costs of going, because we often talk about going, police brutality, cruelty, injustice, but then we never talk about the impact afterwards when you get out, and how that has set you on this trajectory of poverty and off many other things. And so I think that that's really, really key. Those details are really lost in the conversation. What I would like to ask is, you might have mentioned this and I might have missed it, but do you have any statistics around how many you can, how would I describe this? With some legal aid, how many people can actually get expunged? Like 8 out of 10 people that come to you end up getting expunged, because it shows sort of that this can be done, but there's this huge barrier, which is, legal services. And that is one that, like you said, no one can do for themselves. And these are ways that keep people in that poverty cycle as well. And so it'd be interesting to know, with some support, how possible this is.
I can pretty much tell you in terms of people that come to legal aid with eligible offenses, and that's the key.
Yeah.
It has to be eligible. But pretty much 100% of the people that come to us, with eligible offenses have those records expunged. We know what we're doing. We've been doing it for a long time. And so, that if they come to us, but the challenge is, of course, resources, having enough attorneys for the people. And then the other challenge is just dealing with the laws that we have and the ability to, have those expungements occur. A lot of offenses are not eligible. And there's a large swath of people who just will never have that kind of freedom beyond their offense. Unfortunately, the jail time and probation is the first part of the punishment,
right.
And then the second part is your inability to apply for food stamps, your ability to get into housing, your inability to get a job, and then the rest of America saying you need to make something of yourself.
Right. And what percentage of those that are eligible do you feel like you are servicing right now?
Probably 1 and 2. Probably 1 and 2. And that statistic fluctuates depending on demand. I will tell you, when during the pandemic and when a lot of things were shut down, that percentage was much higher. Pre that, it was lower. It just kind of depends on, honestly, what's happening in the community.
Okay. Thank you.
But the fact of the matter is some 1,700 people are being released every day. So
Right, right.
the need is always there, whether they contact us or not.
Yes, Commissioner Diaz.
Dr. Kenya, thank you so much for the work that you do every day.
We do.
What would it look like if the reentry program were fully funded? How many more lawyers does legal aid need?
Well, I would need to limit it to just Davidson County because, as I mentioned, we do have attorneys doing this work, but their work is spread out across our service area. As I mentioned, we could use 2 attorneys alone just in Davidson County because expungements and so forth are one part of it. But as you know, there are so many offenses that are tied to driver's license being suspended. A lot of offenses are tied to driver's licenses being suspended. And as you know, for most people, that is their mode of transportation to get to the job that we want them to have. And so at minimum, 2 attorneys and 1 support staff.
Okay. Commissioner Yesbat.
Excellent presentation, thank you.
Thank you.
I had a question. You said something that I was not aware of, that arrest records are disqualifying people from employment, or?
For sure.
And in what is the context of that?
Criminal background, not knowing what that arrest led to, because it still comes up on your criminal record. Now, I can't point to a specific employer, but I can get that to you if that would be helpful. But an arrest is grounds to keep you from public housing. It does not necessarily have to be an actual conviction.
Just an arrest keeps you out of public housing?
It can.
Okay. I was under the impression, Irwin might know better than this, that if you made employment decisions based on arrests, that you were probably violating Title VII because it has a disparate impact on minorities.
I don't necessarily think that would stop some employers from doing so, though. Unfortunately, there's a lot of things, that you shouldn't. Right. But yes, I mean, it does happen, and we've seen it happen.
Anyone else? Okay, Mel, you. Again, I'm
Thank
grateful.
you so much.
Just listening to you talk, it's reminiscent of the first time I read The New Jim Crow over a decade ago, and that outlined this as a nationwide problem. And so just in the way you stacked it all up, I think you present us with a compelling argument that still needs our attention. And hopefully we can muster whatever it is that we can do to try to be of some assistance in that regard. Again,
Absolutely.
Thank you for your presentation and hope to see you back soon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it each time. If I can ever be of assistance, I'm happy to do so.
Thank you. The director's report.
Yes, thank you. In the interest of your time, I'm not going to do a full director's report. I will provide something in writing to update you on all of our projects. However, I do want to raise just a couple of things. One, on October 19th, this month, we will be presenting at the study session for the Benefits Board, asking Metro government to provide full, inclusive insurance for our transgender employees and pensioners. I always have shout outs for our past chair, Commissioner Richmond, but definitely a huge shout out on this issue. Marissa will be joining me in presenting that case. Big thank you to Liz for putting together what I think of as our brief, right, that we're going to present, and Marissa and I will go make the oral argument. And I'm excited to say that we have support from other Metro employees, including LGBTQ liaisons from the police department and the fire department. I think that we will have the full support of the mayor's office as well. The LGBTQ liaison for the mayor's office has been a part of this conversation and has been assisting us as well. So we'll let you know how the study session goes after the 19th. And I cannot remember when the benefits board then meets again. Liz, do you remember? It's November something?
2nd.
November 2nd, thank you. So this will be the study session, right? So we can sort of dig a little deeper into the issues and answer any questions they might have. And then hopefully that they will then take that to the full benefits board on the 2nd. The other thing that we've been working on that I'm really thankful to finally get out the door is a resource guide and toolkit on language access for all Metro departments. So many years ago, I don't know, was it 2006? No, I'm sorry, 2016. I'm forgetting. I have COVID brain, you guys. I don't have COVID, but since we've been like quarantined in our house, I can't keep track of anything anymore. 2016, our office did the first, and as far as I know, only language access study and report across all Metro departments. And we now have a full toolkit and resource guide to assist departments in creating solid standard operating procedures for providing language access in the most efficient and sort of full way for linguistic minorities, not just those who are LEP, but also those who are deaf and hard of hearing. So I'm very excited once we have a final version, which I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to go ahead and publish it this week before the end of the week. So thank you. We'll send that out to you, and we are offering technical assistance to departments who do not currently have language access plans to write their own standard operating procedures based on the recommendations in our resource guide and our toolkit. At the risk of offering that assistance, given the limited resources we have in the office. But I just think it's a really important thing, and quite frankly, it's this body and this office really are the only clearinghouse in Metro government for language access and meeting language access requirements. And the other thing happening this month that's important is the next envisioning of our Just Conversations project. So the first project in that initiative was a community-wide book reading, but we are also now going to film some conversations between community leaders on a number of topics that the community finds important, from housing to public safety. And I'm thankful to say that I have not been in the weeds of setting up those conversations and that filming. So I want to thank my staff hugely. Thank you very much, Barbara. Thank you, Liz. And thank you, Mark, for being real leaders in that initiative. And if my staff has asked you to do something for Just Conversations and you owe one of them an email or a phone call, please return that email or phone call. And lastly, again, I want to thank Marissa Richmond, Commissioner Richmond, for representing Celebrate Nashville. We had, Celebrate Nashville was this Saturday. If you have never been to Celebrate Nashville, prior to COVID, it was one of the largest festivals, one of the largest cultural festivals in the country, in fact. We did receive, along with Metro Parks, we received a national award on Celebrate Nashville, and it's something that our office has been taking a lead in organizing every year. This year was a hybrid. Last year was all virtual. This year there was hybrid, in-person celebration, and also some stuff online. So if you were not able to join us or didn't watch on Saturday, I'll share with you any of the recordings of, the dancing and singing and all the great the cultural celebration that happened on Saturday. That's all I got right now.
All right. I'm sorry. Will you please say your last name for me?
Safti.
Safi, okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Safi.
Yeah, I know we're out of time. I just wanted to say congratulations on Celebrate Nashville. It was so well organized and such a beautiful event, and on the language access report. And I'm wondering if you guys are planning on a launch or a virtual launch or anything that we can support you with to get the word out and go through the report with the public.
Yes, and I will definitely follow up with you on that. Thank you.
Yes,
And I
Commissioner
wanted to
Bennett.
second also on Celebrate Nashville. We go there every year, and it was just wonderful. And I also was able to take benefit of the new lawn at Centennial Park.
Any announcements? Yes.
I just want to make a brief announcement that this Wednesday, we will be facilitating the Mobile Diversity Seminar again at the Police Training Academy, 2715 Tarpon Road. And we're always interested and intrigued, but nearly 50% of the applicants in this particular session, session 93, are women. So we look forward to this experience this Wednesday. It starts at 8 o'clock, it ends at 4. You can pass through, and it will also be recorded. So you can see that as well.
Do you have what the lunch menu is this time? Because I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Any other announcements? If there are no other announcements, can we entertain a motion to adjourn?
Motion. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.